Here's what got the people of ancient Israel in trouble. They got to the point where they believed that God was only at the temple. Does that make sense? They so longed to be home at the temple. They so revered being home at the temple that they got to this place where they felt like God was only at the temple. And so slowly but surely what they did was they started worshiping the temple rather than the one who makes a home in the temple. Now, the psalm is not actually written that way. In fact, the psalm is actually written to help the singers cultivate an awareness of God wherever they are. In fact, the psalm actually says, when people cultivate an awareness of the presence of God, then they're able to go different places and bring life to situations and places where life wasn't before. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, they got into this sort of trap in ancient Israel where they believed that the building encased the presence of God. Therefore, when the building was gone, they started to pull their hair out and saying, okay, God's dead. Where's God? Come to find out, they didn't need the building to stay in the presence of God. Interesting for a pastor who's about to lead us into a building program, isn't it? Listen, the only reason to have a building, the only reason for a group of people known as the church to have a building, the only reason is this: to cultivate the awareness of the reality of the presence of God. It's the only reason to have a building. It's the only reason to have this building. This is a pretty building, by the way. This is a pretty sanctuary. There's a reason people like to get married here. It's got the nice center aisle, got the pretty ceiling. We're going to work on the carpet. This is a pretty room. But what makes this room effective is that it gives us this tool whereby we can not only celebrate, but cultivate an awareness of the presence of God. Have you ever been here during a service where you felt the presence of God? Have you ever been in this room when you thought to yourself, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know that God is in this room here with us? I have. I've had those goosebumps here. I've actually had those goosebumps here in this building, but not even in this room, actually back in the green room. There have been a lot of Wednesday nights with high school students. I knew that God was there as well. But the building only does its job when it helps to cultivate an awareness of the presence of God that also leaves this building and goes with us wherever we are. This is not a fort. This is not a fort. This is a place where we can come together to equip one another to be more and more and more aware of the transformative presence of God that is everywhere. And the only reason to have this building, and the only reason to build that building out there, and by the way, you're going to hear more and more and a whole lot more about that this month. The only reason to have that building out there, the only reason, is that it can be another tool in God's hands to cultivate an awareness of the presence of God that is everywhere. But if you don't practice the presence of God everywhere, if the reality of the presence of God is not a fact in your life out there on Monday, out there on Sunday at 3 o'clock, then it doesn't make any sense for us to build that building back there.